Welcome to the Leading at the Next Level podcast with Dove Development and Consulting, the show built to provide ongoing support for your leadership journey. I'm Wes Dove, and I have the distinct privilege today to chat with a good friend of mine, Charles Hendricks. Cindy and I've known Charles for a number of years. He is an architect, principal architect, managing partner with Gaines Group Architects here in Harrisonburg, but they serve all over Virginia. And before I butcher any of the details, Charles, how about you give us a brief overview of your professional background, some of the unique experience you've got in the industry, and just anything else you want to add in that process.
All right. Thanks for having me, Wes. It's great to be here. I'm honored to join your podcast. The work that you're doing in the community is so meaningful and powerful. It's just great to be part of your tribe, supporting you and seeing all the cool stuff you're doing. We are a small architecture firm, growing architecture firm. I've been with Gaines Group now since 1999, so a long time, and I've been one of the owners for over a decade, longer than a decade. It's been a long journey. As I've learned what it means to run a business and be a leader in the community. Our firm does a little bit of everything. We design residential, commercial, industrial, private schools, ecclesiastical, basically anybody that needs good design, we're willing to talk to them and help them out. Sometimes that means giving them names of somebody that is just a drafter because that's all they need, and sometimes it means we get to walk through the process and realize their dreams with them. I've worked in all roles in this business. So recently I became the managing partner, which has been an interesting transition from the old school way of running a business by the seat of your pants, which is how Ray did it successfully for 30 more than 30 years. And now we're building systems and project management software and accounting standards and standards of practice. And unfortunately, I have a great team member that loves to dig into the details because that's not my skill set. I like big picture and vision, and she loves the details and sending me lots of emails about what we're working on.
Well, you just explained my business in a nutshell. I'm the guy that loves living by the seat of my pants, charge hell with a water pistol, hold my beer, watch this, whatever you want to put in there with that. And you know my business partner and my wife, her name's Cindy, and praise God she pays attention to those details and she keeps me in line with that.
It's an important piece.
Oh, it's so critical. I just had a conversation just a few days ago with a gentleman. I'm not going to say a young man. He's just a few years younger than we are, but he's started a business. He's worked really, really hard. He's been pretty successful, but he's growing. And he said, now I need to figure out those systems. So he understands exactly what you just talked through. It's in a different sector, but it's the process that so many people go through. Now, Charles, before I get into some of the more tailored questions, I don't know that you and I have ever had this conversation. When I graduated high school, my goal was to become an architect. And I had taken drafting through high school and was doing some of that stuff. It was with the triangle and square and the ruler or the scale and the stuff in those days. And I think we're about the same age. So you're connecting with that with my mechanical pencils and so on. And I realized that I don't sit still very well. And I started community college and decided, I'm not going to do this. And I still love the industry. I still have a passion for what you do. I just went a different direction. So knowing, and when you said 99 is when you started it, that's when, had I went through the 5 years to become an architect, we're about the same age. We would have followed a similar journey. So
it sounds like I'm a little bit older than you because it took me a little longer to get through school. So I'll just give you a brief synopsis of how I landed in architecture. I'm dyslexic. School never made sense to me. I never did well. My brother made straight A's without trying. I was the kid that struggled to get C's when I stayed up studying all night. I took a drafting class in 7th grade and something clicked. It was amazing. I enjoyed it. I loved it. We also did screen printing and print making and photography. I loved all of that creative part of the education. So then I took all the CAD classes and AutoCAD and engineering, drawing, and we did have AutoCAD in my high school back then. It was a very early version before Windows platform. So that's when I decided I wanted to be an architect. I didn't know what that meant. I thought that meant drawing houses, which was fun to do and to figure out. So I went to community college first because I couldn't get into the school I wanted to study architecture in. And then I transferred into architecture school. And when I got out, I interviewed at a lot of firms, and I realized I don't like ego-driven architects. And the firms that I happen to design with, I'm not saying they're all like this, but there's a lot of them out there that it's you're hiring me because I know more than you, so do it this way. And I just did not like that at all. And I landed at this firm because somebody recruited me that was leaving, so she recruited me as her replacement for this firm, and this firm didn't have that ego. They're very this firm still is today very driven to deliver high value economical designs. And I met an architect who was teaching then. He was practicing architect that went back to teach in Mississippi, um, Sam Mockbee, and he talked about how you can use architecture to serve your community. One of my favorite quotes is that every soul deserves shelter. So he was taking pretty wealthy white kids and having them live in a community of extreme poverty, design and build a solution for those people. So somebody in that neighborhood, everybody needed help. One person got help. So they had to deal with the trauma of not being able to help everybody, but they also got to help somebody. So they got that reward. So between Ray letting me come to a firm
Mhm.
and giving me a chance, and Sam Mockbee showing me that you can serve your community through your profession, that's why I'm an architect today. That's why I stuck with the profession after I had some bad experiences in the interview process after UVA.
Mm. Um, that spoke volumes to me. As you just said that, because I don't deal with ego very well either.
Yeah.
Cindy wishes I would be a little bit more patient when I deal with folks with ego, but
Uh-huh.
it is what it is. Pray for
Right.
Cindy, is what I'll say. Now, building off what you just said, I want to tie that back to the theme of my last book, Leading with Clear Purpose. Now, you've went through a transition. You just talked about that purpose that you found in architecture. Talk
Mhm.
to me about the clear purpose that you've had for accepting that leadership responsibility as you've grown through the firm, became an owner, and now have that managing partner responsibility, because it's wildly different than being an architect.
It is, and the beauty of our firm is I don't like it when people say they work for me because we work together.
Mhm.
And that's the way that we've always done it in this firm. Even though Ray was a sole proprietor and we all worked for him, we've always been very collaborative and team driven with our client, and often with the contractor at the table as an equal. So if you don't bring everybody in as an equal and come up with the best solution, you're probably not going to find the best solution because you're going to leave somebody's expertise at the sidelines. So that's how we run the business. That's how Ray taught me to run the business. That's how I'm building systems around to run the business. Is we want to be in service to the community. We want to be supportive of each other. We've always been a very family focused business. You know, if you've got a doctor's appointment, a sick kid, whatever it is, then you that comes first before a deadline. We'll jump in and help meet the deadline because the client still wants the deadline met. So figuring out how to balance those things and just using um, I give a talk about how to use empathy as a design tool. And by design, I don't just mean buildings. I mean designing solutions for everything you do. You have to be able to put yourself in someone else's shoes, which you could never do fully because you haven't lived their experience, but as best you can to come up with the right solutions for how to run a business, how to design a building, how to live life.
It, dude, that's powerful. So much of while I didn't pursue the architecture path. Matter of fact, I got into mechanical design, and I was looking at industrial engineering and so on and so forth, and that just sucked the life out of me. So anyway, but that said, so much of what Cindy and I do today, albeit in a wildly different space, is absolutely designing solutions. And it's
Yes.
really meant to serve the clients that we work with too. And that's what all of us as professionals need to do. Now,
Yeah.
Charles, talk to me about one of your core values. And now this is a personal question, but and the next question will be more into how that connects with the organization. But
Mhm.
talk to me about one of your personal core values and how you model that so everybody you interact with, whether that's your team, your community, feels that and what they experience with you.
Yeah. Well, I think it goes to what I was just talking about. So that being dyslexic and when I'm old. So when I was in school, the dyslexic kids got put in a special class, and they were told, you know, you need to get a good trade job because you're never going to make anything more than that. And some people yeah, that's right path, and they're going to make a lot of money not going to college and not pursuing that path. I love what MTC is doing, and there's some kids that need to be at MTC because they need to have their hands on stuff to solve problems, not looking at books or thinking about problems, which is more what I do. I think about problems and draw the solutions. I don't actually do anything. Um, that so being a mentor to the kid that I needed when I was younger, reaching out and helping people like I needed when I was younger. I mean, my family has a we've experienced a lot of things. We were never houseless, but we were homeless for a good period of time when the coal mines started closing down and Dad lost his job and he had to move away to go get back on his feet. And we lived with relatives that weren't exactly nice people. Um, I want every kid I can help, not just the kids, even every other person I encounter. I want to support them as best as I can. I How I can reach out. I have high school students in the office at Job Shadow. I want to be what I needed when I was younger to set a path for success for the future of our community as a whole.
That's powerful. Over the last month or so, I've had the opportunity to not do what you do, but do it in our own space with kids from 10 years old to 18 years old and teach them communication skills and to styles and how to recognize that in a very practical, usable way that, man, I wish I had that when I was 15, 16, 17 years old, instead of just thinking the way I was the same as everybody else. And it's not.
Yeah,
And that would have eliminated it would have eliminated so much strife in my life and probably would have made the first few years of Cindy's relationship with me a lot easier. But and we get to do it when we wrap this up. Our next thing is we're going to be with a group of middle school kids to talk about
that's awesome.
communication styles. So
Yeah.
I just love that you shared that. Now, talk to me about how that has lined up with what you do with Gaines Group and why or how that's really become such an impactful thing that you do in the community.
It's so we often will hire students right out of college that have very little experience and we'll train them and to come into the profession. In architecture school, you don't really learn how to design a building goes together. You learn to think about design. So we do a lot of teaching, and it goes both ways. They're learning softwares that we don't know. They're learning strategies we don't know. So they're teaching us, and we're teaching them. So keeping that collaborative spirit with everything we're doing within the firm. Um,
Mhm.
the the fun parts, not that figuring out how to put a building together isn't fun because that is fun. That's what I do. Um, Being able to teach at MTC, so I teach the Summer Architecture Academy each year. So I get middle schoolers for a week, for half days, for 5 days, and they design and build out of thin cardboard or foam core a house. So starting on the first day where they have no concept of how big a room is, like they probably haven't put a tape measure down on the ground and figured out their bedroom's 10 by 10 or 12 by 12. Their first design, that bedroom's going to be 40 or 50 feet by 40 or 50 feet, and it's going to have a hot tub in it and a big screen TV, movie theater. So we work through those things in that week and talk about how you design space. Or I have job shadow students in my office each semester, and they'll go through the process. We learn on computer in the office where I've got one student. If I'm in a classroom with students, I don't want to have to figure out if they're doing stuff on a computer. So we do everything by hand drafting in at MTC. So in the office, they also get to design a house and they learn a 3D software and they can do renderings at the end of it. So that's a fun process. Or I've been fortunate to be invited to speak across the country at universities. So on the college level about something I'm very passionate about, sustainability and building science. It's unfortunate those are political terms because it's not political. It's about using resources as good as possible, as best as we can, so that we have them in the future. So that's what sustainability is. And I've taught at universities across the country and shared what I've learned. And I don't have all the solutions. I don't even have most of the solutions, but being able to share it, then they get to give feedback on what they've thought. And we go through these processes and we both learn. So that whole mentoring and helping and supporting others, I think that's that core value coming into the professional world, whether it's with staff or other architects. I've been at other architecture firms doing the same thing, or them helping me.
Now, you've done this for a while, so I'm going to go off script a little bit, but it ties back. You've done this for a number of years. Give me an example, and name or not name, it doesn't matter,
Mhm.
of someone that you've watched through that process that you've been able to mentor, and you've kind of seen that light bulb moment for them. You've seen it really make a positive impact in their career, and more importantly, the people they serve through that career.
Well, there's been a few, and I won't talk about the architecture side, but one of the things that we do here is we want everybody to give volunteer hours to their community,
Mhm.
and we want to find out where their passion lies. So when our interns start, everything's expensive in the world. We can only pay what we can pay, and that pay scale increases as your experience increases. We all know this.
Mhm.
So they can't always just give their time because they have other things they want to do in their free time, and they can't leave work and not get paid for it. So we will pay people to go volunteer. I know that's not volunteering anymore, but I've seen several people where after a number of years of getting them to go out and them seeing the value of it, that they start doing it at organizations that they want to do it on their own time. And there's one person in particular that she's not here anymore, but she has gotten into fostering dogs, and that's how she gives back to the community. And I see her at other events, and she's been involved in some women organizations, but the getting her involved and thinking through how to give back in a real way on a regular basis, and now that's she does a lot of it.
I, I am what you would call a foster dog fail. We attempted to foster a dog about 15 years ago, and we fostered him for 8 or 9 years, the rest of his life. And we're now on our fifth and sixth fosters that are adopted
Uh-huh.
at this
Yeah.
point. So I'm a sucker for them, but that's fantastic. Um, so super powerful. Earlier, you talked about Ray, and you said you never worked for Ray, you always worked with Ray. I'm in the process right now of writing a book about leveraging leadership growth and the strength that we get through great professional relationships, and really the intentionality that has to be in place with that. And I talk a lot in that book about a fellow named Kevin who was my boss for a dozen years, and he was, Charles, without a doubt, the best OSHA compliance workplace safety person that I've ever been around. But I can't ever remember in the 25 years that he's been my friend and mentor, remember a time that he said, "Do this because I said so." And it was just such, and through all the different things and so many of the things that you've shared, that you've done, that you've experienced through the firm, I could take back to my own experience and think about, wow, Kevin did that for me.
Yeah.
And it was just cool. And that's probably one of the ways that I got to through different people meet you, because he connected me with Project Read a number of years ago, that was with Dave Larson and his Rotary group and so on. And one thing led to another, and here we are, friends today. So
Yeah.
it's strength through great professional relationships, right?
Right. Yeah.
Now, you recently, I'm going out of order a little bit. I'm going to come back to one or two other questions, but you recently attended the Construction Specifications Institute National Conference, and you got elevated to fellowship in the organization based on all that you've done for advocating that sustainability that you talked about in the construction industry, the amount of mentoring that you do with peers, as well as the next generation. Talk about that. And then I've got a question I'll tee up for you after you
Yeah.
explain that, because that's a big deal.
Well, that organization, I like to say, is one of the best kept secrets in the industry. So the Dewey Decimal System, that those of us that had to deal with that in when we were growing up in libraries. So master format is the Dewey Decimal System of all construction products. So CSI created that, and the organization was created to enhance communication within the industry. So it brings everybody to the table as an equal. So the product representative, the contractor, the architect, the engineer, the owner's rep, everybody is considered an equal in CSI. So when you go to a CSI meeting, you're all coming there to learn from each other and to help each other, which is the beauty of that organization. They do help with standards for communication. So the specification standards like master format, and they have different certifications that you can get through their organization that says that you know what you're doing. Like I'm CDT, which is a construction document technologist. So it's an exam that I passed that says I understand how contracts work. And if a project were to ever go perfect, this is what perfect would look like. I've yet to have a perfect project, but there's at least a baseline to strive for. Um, in that organization, that's another place where I found mentors and supporters whether it was the golden rep, which is the product representative that tells you about his product, but it will also say, hey, my product's not right for what you're trying to do. You need to talk to this person and use this product for this project. Come back to me on the next one. I'll probably be the right product. So connecting with the golden reps across the country, connecting with other architects that want to see you successful, because you're not competition. We're all working in the industry and trying to elevate the industry. So being involved in CSI, bringing young people into the organization. I've been on a lot of the committees to enhance its membership recruitment, to get more young people to see the value of these connections, these national networks. And then I've spoken at that national conference. I used to be a regular presenter on sustainability and building science when it was just coming into the industry. That was an example of me mentoring up to the people with more experience.
I love that you said mentoring up, because that's one of the things Cindy and I talk about all the time. I'm going to tie that into my next question. Before I go there, though, I'd like you to chat a little bit more about the fellow part, because that's a big deal. And you didn't touch on that. I'm intentionally digging. It's time for you to talk about you. But in addition to, I hear the train.
Yeah, it's going
Yeah,
by. Yep.
that's awesome, because you're in a train station.
Yep.
But talk about that. But there's another industry. I think I understood you to say that you're in that process of earning that fellow certificate or status as well.
Yeah. So with CSI, the second highest honor you can get is fellowship in the organization. And I was fortunate this year to be recognized as a fellow in CSI. So I got to go to the national show, got to be on stage, got a nice little medal to put around my neck. And what they say in CSI world is FCSI doesn't stand for fellow in CSI. It stands for forever indebted to CSI. So now I'm forever indebted to give my time and energy to support the organization, which is a great organization, and I love giving my time to it. I've also been nominated for fellowship in AIA, which is the American Institute of Architects. That package hasn't been put together yet, so I don't know if I will get fellowship in that organization as well. If I do, I would be one of very few in the country that have fellowship in both organizations. And that fellowship nomination was also based on the mentorship that I do in the industry and the advocacy for sustainable design and building better solutions, not the cheapest possible, not code minimum, but raising the level of standard that we do and caring for the future and for God's creation.
Outstanding. And I know you weren't necessarily drawn to talk about the you part of it, but I think it's so important, because the investment we make into other people is really what gives us those opportunities to be able to come into that calling that we've got for ourselves. Now, one of the things that Cindy and I do typically with every group we're in, whether it's a group of executives or we're with folks that are younger in their careers or whatever, we ask for a show of hands to say, hey, who holds leadership responsibility? And inevitably, the folks that raise their hand are, you guessed it, the ones that are supervisors, managers, or owners, right? Mm-hmm. And that's where I challenge it. And I'm going to frame this question that way, because all of us have responsibility to lead. Sometimes it's leading up. Yeah. But it's really leading whoever that we can to make a positive influence. How do we lead them in a positive way to help them make the right decisions for their needs? Now, with that structure, what advice do you, not would you, what advice do you give to aspiring younger professionals that are really looking to advance in their career and want to be successful leaders, not just architects, not just managers, not just owners, but the ones that want to lead effectively?
Yeah, one of the greatest gifts that Ray gave me when I started with the firm, with having never worked in a professional office, only having an academic experience in architecture, was on my first day at work. There were three of them. I was the fourth person in the office, the fourth guy. There were three of them in his small, little, tiny, cramped office arguing about a detail about a masonry fireplace for over an hour, maybe 2 hours. And it was my first day at work. I didn't know what to do. It was 5 o'clock. They told me I was working till 5 o'clock. I was like, I guess I'll go home. So I started packing my stuff up. And as I walked past the door, Ray said, come in here. I was like, oh, maybe I was supposed to work till 6. He said, what do you think about this detail? And I had never seen a section cut through a masonry fireplace. I didn't know about smoke chambers and draw. I didn't know any of that. But they couldn't figure out the solution for this detail they were trying to work out. He said, look at this and tell me what you think and ask questions. And I asked some of the most basic novice questions you can imagine, but it caused them to look at it differently, and they immediately came up with the right solution because I brought them back to the basics. So what we encourage everybody in the firm is ask the question. You don't have to come to us every 5 minutes looking for an answer. Do a little research, but bring your questions to us, because the more that we can collaborate and talk to each other, the more likely we're going to find the better solution. Even if you're not bringing the solution, you're probably bringing a perspective that we haven't considered that will get us to a better finish line.
On that, had he not done that, how quick would you have been to ask those same questions in a conversation similar to that when you were that early in your career?
I mean, I was completely overwhelmed and didn't know what was up at that point. I I knew AutoCAD, and I knew AutoCAD well, and I could do it fast. So they could hand me work and I could execute the work and I could go home. Had he not empowered me at some point to step in and say, here's what I think,
Mhm.
I probably wouldn't own the firm today. So whether he did that on the first day or the fifth day, would it have changed the trajectory? I don't know. But had he not been willing to bring in the young person that doesn't know to ask those questions, I wouldn't have grown into the leader I am.
Yeah, that's so cool. One of the things I'll stress all the time is if you don't ask the question, the answer is going to be no.
Right.
And man, I've been blessed beyond measure with some of the folks that Cindy and I've got to interact with over the last 10 years. And today, I mean, you met Mark Cole a couple months ago at the Leadership
Mhm.
Legacy event and so on. A big part of the reason I've got the relationship I do with Mark today is because I continue to ask, hey, can I get some time? Will you
Yeah.
do this? And I've applied that. And what I've learned, Charles, is some of the best leaders I've ever gotten to know in every sector are always willing to make that time, even though they've got crazy busy schedules. When I said,
Right.
do you want to do this podcast? I know what you're doing. I know the things you're doing with work. I know the things you're doing with your dad. You didn't have time, but you could have told me no. I still love you. But it was, you wouldn't have told me no without me asking.
Right. I appreciate the opportunity to be on the podcast with you.
So, the last question I'm going to ask is you've talked a bit about your values. You've talked about that purpose that drives you. How have those things really pushed you to invest in your own leadership growth? Because, who we are today, it can be solid, but if we're not actively growing, we're dying, right?
Yeah. It's easy to walk through life with blinders on and not see where you need to grow. So I was hit over the head recently. We had a new employee start, and our communication skills didn't align very well. And I couldn't figure out why what I was saying wasn't being heard very well. And it's easy to say, well, they need to listen better. But I didn't. I started watching a lot of online videos, podcasts, reading trainings, reading your newsletter, trying to figure out how I could be better at explaining what I needed done or setting the example for how I wanted it done. So I've gone through, in all the time that I've been driving over to the hospital, hour trip, an hour back, listening a lot and growing as best I can. I'm old, training my brain to think differently and to talk differently over this last, I would say it's been a year now since, well, not even quite a year that Dad's been a regular visitor to over the mountain to the hospital. That just finding any resource I can and looking for online mentors that can just talk to me while I'm driving, even if it's not all sinking in, because I'm also trying to dodge the tractor trailers. So just trying to evolve my brain and think about things in a new way. And the industry's changing so rapidly, you have to think about it differently. So not only talking to employees or talking to your peers, your clients have different expectations now. So consistently training your brain and being aware of what's going on in the industry and the world and how it's changing, and trying to cut through the nonsense and the divisiveness that's put in front of us every day, and just figure out how, we agree on most things. We don't have to worry about the few things we don't agree on. Let's just figure that out. And so I'm doing a lot of online listening and training and meetings with professionals in the community just to grow who I am and how I can communicate.
I, that took me back as well. I didn't go to college. I went for a little bit. I talked about that, hit it with a stick, didn't like
Mhm.
setting still don't like setting still.
Yeah.
And I remember when I had a 1994 Dodge Dakota that the air conditioner didn't work, my CD player no longer worked, and I couldn't afford to fix either one. So I had this little Walkman size cassette player that took two AA batteries, but had an external speaker. So in the wintertime, I could hear it okay in the truck. But
Yeah.
in the summertime, if you didn't want to die of heat exposure, you had to roll the
Roll the
windows down,
windows down. Yep.
the thing up to my ear.
Uh-huh.
And I'll bet I listened to no less than 300 books on tape. And I say tape because it was tapes in those days, and
Right.
all the different audio lessons I could get my hands on. And I didn't listen to music for 15 years,
Huh.
but that was my education.
Yeah.
Uh, and still today, that's a primary source because if we're on the road anyway. So
Yeah.
yeah, powerful stuff, dude. What
Right.
did I not ask you that I should be? What do you want to share?
Well, what we talked about before this was the importance of everyone to reach out and be a mentor. None of us have time, and it might be a 1 hour meeting, which I do with students considering architecture schools. I say, well, just come in, let's talk a little bit. Or if it's a whole semester and they're in the office 1 or 2 or 3 days a week, or if it's just going to visit a class on career day and talking about the why of what you do. Um, if I go to a class and tell them, yeah, I spent the last 9 hours answering emails, they're probably not going to want to be an architect. But if I tell them the why I answered those 9 hours of emails, they might be interested in it. And then I also get to tell them about some of the exciting days too that are in between the email boxes. So I think just anyone that can share their experience, regardless of where they are, whether it's um, a teacher or an engineer or an, a doctor, just take some time and empower that person, in particular that introvert that's in the back of the room, which is where I typically am. Talk to them and make sure that they feel included and invited into the conversation. So mentor anywhere that you can and every meeting you can, and figure out how you can make a difference for the future.
I absolutely love it. This is fantastic. Thank you for taking the time out of all the different plates you spend to be able to chat through this with me. I
Yeah.
learned a bunch about you that I didn't know, and got to hear some really cool stuff that I didn't know. Thank you for sharing all
Yeah,
this.
thanks for inviting me, and I really appreciate all that you and Cindy are doing in the community and the opportunities that you're giving business leaders to grow here.
Well, I've got a vision of a big community that we all get better because of one another, and
Yeah,
we're better because of that. I can promise you that, and you're
right.
part of that group, brother. Thank you for that.
Yeah,
Oh,
thanks.
guys, for those of you listening to the Leading at the Next Level podcast, first and foremost, thank you. Appreciate you taking the time to do that. If you get value from what Charles and I talked through, and for any reason you would need any continuing education credit, specifically in the HR community or others, and you've got a desire to go a little bit deeper, there's a link in the show notes where that you can use to get a 14-day trial. It's just $1 setup fee, and it gives you access to now more than 170 individual lessons in that full Leading at the Next Level program. Cindy and I also do live ones each month, all of which are approved for credit and so on. There's a new chat agent that lives in that, so you can put in, here's the issue I'm dealing with, what lessons help me with that, and it'll spit them out to you faster than you can send the email to me. Praise God for technology. Um, the links in the show notes for this. Again, Charles, I really appreciate you taking the time to do that. I look forward to catching up with you soon. We're about to release a book called The Values Advantage. That might be in the show notes as well, but it really digs into why values are so critical. And you talked so eloquently about that in this process. So hope this serves everyone listening well, and look forward to seeing everybody soon. Charles, thanks again for the time, brother.
Yeah,
Bless.
thanks.